Ethan Caldwell stood at the edge of his penthouse balcony, overlooking the glittering New York skyline. The sounds of laughter and clinking glasses from the party behind him seemed distant and hollow. Despite being surrounded by the city's elite, Ethan felt utterly alone. He gazed at his reflection in the glass railing, seeing a man who had everything money could buy, yet felt empty inside. At 45, Ethan had amassed a fortune that most could only dream of, but the pursuit of wealth had left him disillusioned. The endless cycle of business deals, social events, and superficial relationships had taken its toll. As dawn broke over the city, Ethan found himself wandering through Central Park, seeking solitude and a break from his gilded cage. The park was quiet, save for the occasional jogger or early morning dog walker. As he rounded a bend in the path, he noticed a figure hunched over a park bench. Curiosity piqued. Ethan approached the bench. A man in tattered clothes sat there, completely absorbed in his task. Jamal Rivers, though Ethan didn't know his name yet, was furiously sketching on a crumpled piece of paper. The intensity of his focus was palpable. Ethan cleared his throat, startling Jamal. "I'm sorry," Ethan said. "I couldn't help but notice your drawing. May I see it?" Jamal hesitated for a moment before handing over the paper. Ethan's eyes widened as he took in the intricate sketch of the park landscape. Despite the poor quality of the materials, the artistry was undeniable. "This is remarkable," Ethan said, genuine admiration in his voice. "Where did you learn to draw like this?" Jamal's face lit up at the compliment. "I've been drawing since I was a kid," he replied. "It's always been my escape, you know. No matter how tough things got, I could always lose myself in art." Intrigued, Ethan sat down next to Jamal. For the next hour, he listened as Jamal shared his life story. Born and raised in the Bronx, Jamal had shown artistic promise from a young age. However, financial struggles and family obligations had forced him to put his dreams on hold. Despite facing homelessness and countless setbacks, Jamal maintained an unwavering optimism and passion for art. "I still believe that art can change lives," Jamal said, his eyes shining with conviction. "If I could, I'd open a school to teach kids from my neighborhood. Show them that there's beauty in the world, even in the toughest places." As Jamal spoke, Ethan felt something stir within him. For the first time in years, he was moved by someone's passion and resilience. The contrast between Jamal's circumstances and his own struck him profoundly. Without fully understanding why, Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a rare pink diamond worth millions. He had purchased it on a whim, another meaningless acquisition in a life full of excess. "Jamal," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion, "I want you to have this." He opened the box, revealing the sparkling gem. Jamal's eyes widened in disbelief. I can't accept that," he stammered. "Please," Ethan insisted. "You have a vision, a purpose. Use this to make it a reality. Open that school you talked about." Jamal's hands trembled as he took the box. "I don't know what to say," he whispered. "Say you'll do it," Ethan replied. "Show the world what you're capable of." As Ethan walked away from the bench, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of purpose. Little did he know that this encounter would be the beginning of a journey that would change not only Jamal's life, but his own as well. The next morning, Ethan sat at his breakfast table, sipping coffee and absently flipping through the newspaper. Suddenly, a headline caught his eye. "Homeless man opens art school in the Bronx with mystery diamond." His heart raced as he began to read. The article detailed how Jamal Rivers, a formerly homeless artist, had used a rare pink diamond to secure funding for a new art school in one of the Bronx's most underprivileged neighborhoods. The school, aptly named Light of Hope, had opened its doors just days after Jamal had received the diamond from an anonymous benefactor. Ethan's eyes widened as he read about the immediate impact the school was having on the community. Local children, many of whom had never held a paintbrush before, were flocking to the converted warehouse space. The article quoted several students and parents, all of whom spoke of the school as a beacon of hope in an area often overlooked by the city. Intrigued and somewhat surprised by the rapid developments, Ethan decided to see the school for himself. He dressed in casual clothes, hoping to blend in, and made his way to the Bronx address listed in the article. As Ethan approached the converted warehouse, he was struck by the vibrant mural adorning its exterior. The once drab building now exploded with color, depicting scenes of urban life intertwined with fantastical elements. Children's laughter drifted through the open windows. Hesitantly, Ethan pushed open the door and stepped inside. The interior was a hive of activity. Children of various ages were scattered around the large open space, some painting at easels, others molding clay, and a group in the corner was working on a large collaborative sculpture. Amidst the creative chaos, Ethan spotted Jamal. He was kneeling beside a young girl, gently guiding her hand as she applied paint to a canvas. The joy on both their faces was palpable. Jamal looked up and his eyes widened in recognition. He quickly made his way over to Ethan, enveloping him in a warm embrace. "You came," Jamal said, his voice thick with emotion. "I can't believe you're here." Ethan, somewhat taken aback by the warmth of the welcome, managed to smile. "I wanted to see what you've accomplished," he said. "It's incredible." Jamal beamed with pride as he gave Ethan a tour of the school. He introduced him to students and volunteer teachers, each with their own story of how the school had already impacted their lives. Ethan was struck by the energy and passion that seemed to radiate from every corner of the building. As they walked, Jamal explained his vision for the school. "It's not just about teaching art techniques," he said. "It's about giving these kids a voice, a way to express themselves and their experiences. For many of them, this is the first time anyone has told them their perspective matters." Ethan found himself deeply moved by Jamal's words and the tangible results of his generosity. The diamond, which had meant little to him, had sparked a transformation in this community. As the tour concluded, a group of students approached Jamal, eager to show him their latest creations. Ethan watched as Jamal engaged with each child, offering encouragement and genuine interest in their work. In that moment, something shifted within Ethan. The emptiness he had felt for so long began to fill with a sense of purpose. He realized that his wealth and influence could be used for something greater than personal gain. "Jamal," Ethan said as the children dispersed, "I'd like to help, not just with money but with my time. Do you think I could be of use here?" Jamal's face lit up. "Are you kidding? We could use all the help we can get. There's so much more we want to do. Art shows, community outreach, maybe even expand to other neighborhoods." As they began to discuss possibilities, Ethan felt a spark of excitement he hadn't experienced in years. He was no longer just a passive observer, but an active participant in something meaningful. That evening, as Ethan left the school, he looked back at the vibrant building standing out against the backdrop of the Bronx. He realized that in trying to change Jamal's life, he had inadvertently changed his own. This was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about success, wealth, and the power of art to transform lives. As weeks turned into months, the Light of Hope Art School continued to thrive under Jamal's passionate leadership. However, the rapid growth and success of the school brought with it a new set of challenges that Jamal was ill-equipped to handle. One rainy afternoon, Ethan arrived at the school to find Jamal hunched over a desk, surrounded by a sea of paperwork. The usual sparkle in Jamal's eyes was replaced by a look of frustration and worry. "What's going on, Jamal?" Ethan asked, concern evident in his voice. Jamal looked up, his face etched with stress. "It's everything," he sighed. "Bills, permits, grant applications. I never realized running a school would involve so much bureaucracy. Ethan picked up a few of the papers, quickly scanning their contents. He saw overdue utility bills, rejected grant applications, and notices from the city about building code violations. "We're barely keeping our heads above water," Jamal continued. "The initial funds from the diamond are running low, and I have no idea how to secure more funding. I'm an artist, not a businessman. I'm afraid I'm letting everyone down." Ethan felt a pang of guilt. In his enthusiasm to help, he had overlooked the practical challenges Jamal would face in running a non-profit organization. He realized that simply providing the initial funding wasn't enough. Jamal needed ongoing support and guidance. "Let me help," Ethan said, pulling up a chair. "I may not know much about art, but I do know about running a business." Over the next few hours, Ethan and Jamal pored over the school's finances and paperwork. Ethan explained the intricacies of budgeting, fundraising, and navigating city regulations. He was impressed by Jamal's quick grasp of these concepts, despite his lack of formal business education. As they worked, Ethan's mind raced with possibilities. He realized he could leverage his connections and influence to secure more stable funding for the school. "Jamal," Ethan said, "I think I can help with the funding issues. I know people, philanthropists, art collectors, corporate sponsors. We can organize a fundraising event, showcase the students' work. It could be a game changer for the school." Jamal's eyes lit up at the idea, but Ethan could see a flicker of uncertainty cross his face. "That sounds amazing, but—" Jamal hesitated. "I don't want to lose sight of what this school is about. It's not just about making money or impressing rich people. It's about giving these kids a chance to express themselves, to see a future beyond their circumstances." Ethan nodded, understanding Jamal's concern. "We'll make sure the event stays true to the school's mission. The students will be the stars. We're not changing the school, Jamal. We're just ensuring it can continue to change lives." Over the next few weeks, Ethan threw himself into organizing the fundraising event. He called in favors, negotiated with vendors, and personally reached out to potential donors. As he worked alongside Jamal, Ethan found himself questioning his own beliefs about money and success. He had always equated wealth with personal achievement, but seeing the impact of Jamal's work made him realize that true success lay in using one's resources to uplift others. The joy on the students' faces as they created art was worth more than any luxury item Ethan had ever purchased. The night of the fundraiser arrived, and the school was transformed. Student artwork adorned the walls, and the young artists themselves mingled with the city's elite, proudly explaining their creations. Ethan watched as Jamal, dressed in a borrowed suit, confidently addressed the crowd, sharing his vision for the school and the community. As the evening progressed, pledges of support poured in. Corporate sponsorships were secured, and several attendees offered to volunteer their time and expertise to the school. By the end of the night, the school's financial future looked brighter than ever. Later, as they sat amidst the remnants of the event, Ethan turned to Jamal. "You did it," he said. "You've secured the school's future." Jamal shook his head. "We did it," he corrected. "I couldn't have done this without you, Ethan. You've become more than just a benefactor. You're a true friend and partner in this mission." Ethan felt a warmth spread through his chest at Jamal's words. He realized that in helping Jamal overcome these challenges, he had found something he'd been missing, a sense of purpose and genuine connection. As they continued to talk into the night, planning for the school's future, Ethan knew that his journey of self-discovery was far from over. But for the first time in years, he was excited about what lay ahead. The success of the fundraiser brought a new energy to the Light of Hope Art School. With financial stability secured, Jamal and Ethan could focus on expanding the school's programs and reach. However, an unexpected arrival was about to add a new dynamic to their partnership. One crisp autumn morning, As Ethan was helping a group of students set up for a still life class, the school's door swung open. A young woman with vibrant blue hair and paint-splattered jeans strode in, her eyes taking in every detail of the space. "Sarah?" Jamal's voice rang out in surprise. He quickly crossed the room, enveloping the newcomer in a warm embrace. Ethan watched curiously as Jamal and the woman chatted animatedly. Their familiarity was evident, and Ethan couldn't help but feel a twinge of something he couldn't quite identify. Perhaps curiosity, perhaps something more. Jamal finally turned, gesturing for Ethan to join them. "Ethan, I want you to meet Sarah. She was one of my first students, years ago, before all this." He waved his hand, encompassing the school. Sarah extended her hand, her grip firm and assured. "So you're the famous Ethan," she said with a smile. "Jamal's told me all about you and what you've done for this place." Ethan felt an unexpected warmth at her words. "It's been a joint effort," he replied modestly. "Jamal's the real visionary here." Over coffee in Jamal's small office, Sarah shared her story. After learning from Jamal as a teenager, she had pursued art with a passion, facing years of struggle and rejection. Now, at 28, she was finally gaining recognition in the New York art scene. "But I never forgot where I came from," Sarah said, her eyes shining with emotion. "When I heard about what Jamal was doing here, I knew I had to come back and help." Jamal beamed with pride. "Sarah's got skills we could really use," he told Ethan. "She's been working with some cutting-edge digital art techniques, stuff our kids would love." Over the next few weeks, Sarah became a fixture at the school. She introduced classes on digital art and animation, captivating the students with her energy and expertise. Ethan found himself spending more time at the school, ostensibly to observe the new programs, but increasingly drawn to conversations with Sarah. One evening, as they were cleaning up after a particularly messy sculpting class, Ethan and Sarah found themselves alone. "You know," Sarah said, wiping clay from her hands, "I never expected to find someone like you here." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Someone like me?" Sarah laughed. "Yeah, you know. Rich guy, big shot. I thought you'd be all about the bottom line, but you really care about these kids." Ethan felt a mix of emotions at her words: pride, embarrassment, and a hint of something else. "I'm not the same person I was when I first met Jamal," he admitted. "This place, these people, they've changed me." Sarah's gaze softened. "I can see that," she said quietly. It's really admirable." As they talked, Ethan found himself opening up about his past, his feelings of emptiness despite his wealth, and his growing sense of purpose since becoming involved with the school. Sarah listened intently, sharing her own struggles and aspirations. The conversation flowed easily, touching on art, philosophy, and their hopes for the future. Ethan was struck by Sarah's passion and intelligence, finding in her a kindred spirit he hadn't realized he'd been missing. As the night wore on, Ethan became acutely aware of a growing attraction to Sarah. Her creativity, her dedication to the students, and her genuine warmth were deeply appealing. Yet, he also felt a nagging sense of guilt. Was he overstepping some unspoken boundary? Unbeknownst to them, Jamal had returned to the school to pick up some forgotten paperwork. He paused in the doorway, observing Ethan and Sarah's animated conversation. A flicker of emotion crossed his face, concern perhaps, or something deeper. As Jamal watched his two friends, he couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. He was thrilled to have Sarah back and grateful for Ethan's continued support, but seeing them together stirred complicated emotions. Was he worried about the school, or was there something more personal at stake? Jamal cleared his throat, making his presence known. Ethan and Sarah jumped slightly, both looking a bit flustered. "Sorry to interrupt," Jamal said, his tone carefully neutral. "Just forgot some papers." As Jamal gathered his things, an awkward silence fell over the room. The easy camaraderie of moments before was replaced by an undercurrent of tension, hinting at the complex dynamics that were beginning to develop between the three friends. The tension that had begun to simmer between Ethan, Jamal, and Sarah came to a boil one rainy afternoon at the school. Ethan had just finished discussing a potential partnership with a local tech company that could provide computers for a new digital art lab. He was eager to share the news with Jamil, but found him in a heated discussion with Sarah. "I'm just saying, we need to be careful," Jamal was saying, his voice uncharacteristically sharp. "We can't lose sight of our original mission." Sarah's response was equally tense. "The world is changing, Jamal. We need to give these kids every opportunity we can." Ethan cleared his throat, causing both to turn abruptly. "Is everything okay?" he asked, sensing the charged atmosphere. Jamal ran a hand over his face, visibly frustrated. "Ethan, can we talk? Privately?" Once in Jamal's small office, the floodgates opened. "What are we doing here, Ethan?" Jamal asked, pacing the small space. "First the fundraiser, now this tech partnership. It feels like we're moving away from what this school was meant to be." Ethan was taken aback. "I thought we were expanding our resources, giving the kids more opportunities." "But at what cost?" Jamal countered. "We're becoming exactly what I never wanted, another institution more focused on prestige than on the kids themselves." The accusation stung Ethan. "That's not fair, Jamal. Everything I've done has been to support your vision." "Has it?" Jamal's voice was quiet but intense. "Or has it been about assuaging your own guilt? Making yourself feel better about your wealth?" The words hung in the air between them. Ethan felt a surge of anger, followed quickly by doubt. Was Jamal right? Had he lost sight of the school's true purpose in his eagerness to help? "And what about Sarah?" Jamal continued, unable to stop now that he'd started. "I've seen how you two are together. Is she just another project for you?" Ethan recoiled as if slapped. "That's out of line, Jamal. Sarah is her own person, and my relationship with her, whatever it might be, has nothing to do with the school." The two men stared at each other. Years of friendship and shared purpose suddenly strained by mistrust and misunderstanding. Finally, Ethan spoke, his voice controlled. "I think I need some time away to reflect on my role here and my motivations." Jamal nodded stiffly, not meeting Ethan's eyes. Maybe that's for the best. As Ethan left the school, the rain matching his mood, he felt a deep sense of loss. He had thought he'd found purpose and connection at Light of Hope, but now everything seemed uncertain. Over the next few weeks, Ethan kept his distance from the school, immersing himself in his business affairs. But his heart wasn't in it. He found himself constantly thinking about the kids, about Jamal, about Sarah. Meanwhile, Jamal was facing his own crisis. Without Ethan's support and connections, the school's finances began to strain. Grant applications were rejected, and a few key donors pulled their support, citing concerns about the school's direction. Sarah tried to bridge the gap, working tirelessly to keep the programs running smoothly. But she too felt the weight of the unresolved tension. The situation came to a head when Jamal received a notice from the city. Due to budget cuts, they were reevaluating funding for community programs. Light of Hope was at risk of losing its space. Jamal sat at his desk, staring at the letter, feeling overwhelmed. He had started this school with nothing but a dream and a diamond. Now, despite all their success, it felt like everything was slipping away. In that moment, Jamal realized the true cost of his pride and fear. He had pushed away Ethan, doubted Sarah's intentions, all because he was afraid of losing control of his vision. With a heavy heart, Jamal picked up the phone. He needed help, and he knew there was only one person he could truly count on. "Ethan," he said when the call connected. "I'm sorry, I was wrong. We need you. The school needs you." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Jamal held his breath, wondering if he had damaged their friendship beyond repair. Finally, Ethan's voice came through, warm and relieved. "I'm on my way, Jamal. We'll figure this out together." As Jamal hung up the phone, he felt a glimmer of hope. They had faced challenges before, but this would be their greatest test yet. The future of Light of Hope hung in the balance, and it would take all of them, Jamal, Ethan, and Sarah, working together to save it. Ethan arrived at the school just as Jamal was gathering the staff and volunteers for an emergency meeting. The atmosphere was tense. Worried whispers filled the air as people filed into the main art room. Sarah caught Ethan's eye as he entered, relief visible on her face. Jamal stood at the front of the room, the city's notice clutched in his hand. He looked tired, but determined. "I'm not going to sugarcoat this," he began. "The city is threatening to shut us down. Budget cuts, they say." A collective gasp went through the room. "But we're not going down without a fight." Ethan stepped forward, standing beside Jamal in a show of solidarity. "We've faced challenges before," he said, his voice steady. "This is just another hurdle we'll overcome together." Sarah joined them, completing the trio at the front of the room. "We need to show the city, and everyone else, what this place means to our community," she added. "We need to make some noise." The next hour was a flurry of ideas and planning. They decided to organize a peaceful demonstration outside City Hall, showcasing the students' artwork and the impact of the school on their lives. Ethan would leverage his media contacts to ensure coverage, while Sarah would coordinate with local artists to amplify their message. As the meeting dispersed, the three friends found themselves alone in the room. The tension from their previous disagreements still lingered, but it was overshadowed by a shared sense of purpose. "I'm sorry," Jamal said, breaking the silence. "I let my fears and insecurities get the best of me. This school, it's become my whole life. The thought of losing it, or of it changing into something I didn't recognize, it scared me." Ethan placed a hand on Jamal's shoulder. "I understand, and I'm sorry too. I should have been more sensitive to your vision, to what this place means to you." Sarah looked between them, a small smile on her face. "We all want the same thing," she said, "to give these kids a chance, to show them the power of art. We're stronger together." The day of the demonstration arrived, and the area in front of City Hall was transformed into an outdoor gallery. Students' paintings, sculptures, and digital art pieces were displayed proudly, each accompanied by a statement about what the school meant to its creator. Jamal, Ethan, and Sarah moved through the crowd, talking to reporters, city officials, and community members. They shared stories of lives changed, of hope restored, of futures brightened through art. As the demonstration reached its peak, Ethan found himself standing at the podium, facing a sea of faces and cameras. He took a deep breath, thinking of how far he'd come since that fateful morning in Central Park. "A wise man once told me that art can change lives," Ethan began, his eyes finding Jamal in the crowd. "I didn't fully understand what he meant then, but now, looking at what the Light of Hope has accomplished, I do." He gestured to the artwork surrounding them. These pieces aren't just paint on canvas or clay shaped by hands. They're dreams made visible. They're proof that, with the right support and opportunity, anyone can create beauty, can tell their story, can shape their future. Ethan's voice grew stronger, fueled by genuine passion. Closing this school wouldn't just be a budgetary decision. It would be silencing voices that deserve to be heard. It would be dimming lights that have only just begun to shine. As he spoke, Ethan noticed movement in the crowd. City council members were huddling together, speaking in hushed tones. The mayor herself had arrived, her expression thoughtful as she took in the scene. "We're not asking for charity," Ethan continued. "We're asking for investment in our youth, in our community, in our shared future. The return on that investment, it's all around you." It's in every piece of art, every smiling face, every life touched by what happens within the walls of Light of Hope. As Ethan concluded his speech, the crowd erupted in applause. He stepped back, feeling a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. Jamal and Sarah joined him, their faces reflecting the same complex emotions. The mayor approached them, her security detail parting the crowd. "You've certainly made your point," she said, her tone unreadable. "I'd like to discuss this further. Perhaps we can find a solution that works for everyone." As the mayor led them towards City Hall for further discussions, Ethan, Jamal, and Sarah exchanged glances. They knew this was just the beginning of a new challenge, but for the first time in weeks, they felt united and hopeful. The future of Light of Hope was still uncertain, but they were ready to face it together. The weeks following the demonstration were a whirlwind of meetings, negotiations, and planning. The mayor, impressed by the community's support for Light of Hope, had agreed to a compromise. The school would keep its space, but they needed to prove their value through measurable outcomes and increased community engagement. Ethan, Jamal, and Sarah threw themselves into the challenge, working tirelessly to meet the city's requirements while staying true to their mission. Their renewed partnership, strengthened by the recent trials, proved to be their greatest asset. As part of their efforts to showcase the school's impact, they organized a grand art exhibition, inviting the entire community to see the students' work. The event was scheduled for a warm Saturday evening, transforming the school and the surrounding block into a vibrant outdoor gallery. On the day of the exhibition, the school buzzed with excitement. Students carefully arranged their pieces, while volunteers set up refreshment stands and information booths. Ethan oversaw the logistics, ensuring everything ran smoothly. Jamal moved from student to student, offering words of encouragement and last-minute advice. Sarah coordinated with local artists who had come to support the event, creating an atmosphere of collaboration between established professionals and aspiring young creators. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the neighborhood, people started to arrive. Families, art enthusiasts, city officials, and curious locals all mingled, admiring the diverse array of artwork on display. Midway through the evening, Ethan found himself standing before a particularly striking painting. It depicted a phoenix rising from the ashes of a dilapidated building, its wings forming the shape of a heart around a group of children. "That's one of mine," a voice said beside him. Ethan turned to see a young girl, no more than 14, looking at the painting with a mix of pride and nervousness. "It's extraordinary," Ethan said, genuinely impressed. "What inspired you?" The girl's eyes lit up. "This school," she said. "Before I came here, I felt lost, like I didn't have a voice. But Mr. Rivers and Ms. Sarah, they showed me that I could express myself through art. That painting? It's about how this place gave me hope." Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. This was why they had fought so hard, why they continued to push forward, despite the challenges. As the girl moved on to speak with other attendees, Ethan made his way to the small stage they had set up. It was time for his speech. Looking out over the crowd, Ethan saw faces filled with joy, curiosity, and pride. He saw Jamal, beaming as he chatted with a group of students and their parents. He saw Sarah, her blue hair a beacon in the crowd, enthusiastically explaining a digital art installation to some city council members. Ethan cleared his throat and began to speak. "A few months ago, I stood before a different crowd, fighting for the survival of this school. Today, I stand before you not to fight, but to celebrate." He gestured to the artwork surrounding them. "What you see here is more than just paintings, sculptures, or digital creations. It's the manifestation of dreams, the product of hard work, and the proof that when we invest in our youth and our community, amazing things happen. Ethan went on to share stories of the students' achievements, both artistic and academic. He talked about how the school had become a hub for the community, offering not just art classes, but a safe space for creativity and growth. "But we're not done," Ethan continued, his voice filled with determination. "This is just the beginning. With your continued support, we plan to expand our programs, reach more students, and continue to prove that art is not a luxury, but a vital part of a thriving community." As Ethan concluded his speech, the crowd erupted in applause. He stepped down from the stage, immediately enveloped in a hug from Jamal. "We did it, man," Jamal said, his voice thick with emotion. "We really did it." Sarah joined them, her eyes shining. "I have news," she said excitedly. "Two of our students just got accepted into the summer program at the New York Academy of Art. Full scholarships." The three friends stood together, basking in the moment of triumph. They had faced doubt, conflict, and near defeat, but had come through stronger than ever. As the exhibition continued around them, Ethan, Jamal, and Sarah began to discuss their plans for the future. They talked about new programs they wanted to implement, ways to reach even more students, and how to continue building bridges with the community. The light of hope had not only survived, but was shining brighter than ever. And for Ethan, Jamal, and Sarah, this was just the beginning of a new chapter in their shared journey. The success of the exhibition marked a turning point for Light of Hope. With renewed community support and the city's backing, the school entered a period of growth and stability. Ethan, Jamal, and Sarah fell into a comfortable rhythm, each leveraging their unique strengths to push the school forward. However, their newfound equilibrium was about to be tested. On a crisp autumn morning, Sarah burst into Jamal's office, her face a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I've been offered a position," she blurted out, her words tumbling over each other. "In Los Angeles. It's a chance to curate a major exhibition focusing on emerging urban artists." Jamal's face fell, though he quickly tried to mask his disappointment. That's incredible, Sarah. When would you need to leave?" "That's the thing," Sarah said, sinking into a chair. "The exhibition is in 3 months. They want me there as soon as possible to start preparations." The news spread quickly. Ethan, upon hearing it from Jamal, felt a complex swirl of emotions: pride in Sarah's accomplishment, sadness at the prospect of her leaving, and a gnawing worry about how her departure would affect the school and himself. Over the next few days, an undercurrent of tension ran through the school. Students who had grown close to Sarah were upset at the thought of losing their mentor. Jamal threw himself into his work, staying late into the night, as if trying to prove the school could function without her. Ethan found himself torn. On one hand, he was genuinely happy for Sarah. This was a massive opportunity for her career, a chance to make a name for herself in the broader art world. On the other hand, the thought of her leaving created a hollow feeling in his chest that he couldn't quite explain. One evening, as the school was emptying out, Ethan found Sarah in the digital art lab, staring blankly at a computer screen. "Hey," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. "You okay?" Sarah turned, her eyes meeting his. "I don't know," she admitted. "This is everything I've ever wanted, career-wise. But the thought of leaving, it's harder than I expected." Ethan nodded, understanding all too well. "The school has become a family," he said. "Leaving family is never easy." They fell into a comfortable silence, both lost in thought. Finally, Sarah spoke again. "What do you think I should do, Ethan?" The question caught him off guard. Part of him wanted to beg her to stay, to tell her how much she meant to the school, to him. But he knew that wouldn't be fair. "I think," he said slowly, choosing his words carefully, "that you need to follow your heart. You've given so much to this place, Sarah. Maybe it's time to see what else you can achieve." Sarah's eyes welled up with tears. "But what about the kids? What about Jamal? What about—" She trailed off, but her gaze, locked on Ethan's, spoke volumes. Ethan felt his heart race. The unspoken connection between them, which had been simmering for months, suddenly felt very real and very fragile. "We'll manage," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "The school is strong, and as for us, well, Los Angeles isn't that far, is it?" Sarah let out a watery laugh. "It feels like a world away right now." As they continued to talk, weighing the pros and cons of Sarah's opportunity, neither noticed Jamal standing in the doorway. He watched his two friends, saw the intimacy in their conversation, and felt a pang of something he couldn't quite name. Was it jealousy? Fear of being left behind? Or simply the sadness of knowing things were about to change dramatically? Jamal cleared his throat, making his presence known. Ethan and Sarah jumped slightly, a guilty look flashing across their faces. "Sorry to interrupt," Jamal said, his tone carefully neutral. "I just wanted to let you know I've called a staff meeting for tomorrow morning. I think we need to discuss how to handle this situation." As Jamal turned to leave, the atmosphere in the room grew heavy. The delicate balance they had achieved over the past months suddenly felt precarious. Sarah's opportunity had brought to the surface not just logistical challenges for the school, but also the complex emotions and unspoken feelings that had been simmering among the three friends. The next day's meeting loomed before them, promising to be a turning point not just for Sarah's career, but for the future of Light of Hope and the relationships that had become its foundation. The staff meeting the next morning was tense. Jamal had gathered everyone in the main art room, the same space where they had rallied together to save the school just months ago. Now it felt like they were facing another crisis, albeit a more personal one. Jamal cleared his throat, his usual easy demeanor replaced by a more somber tone. "As some of you may have heard, Sarah has received an incredible opportunity in Los Angeles." He paused, letting the news sink in for those who hadn't yet heard. "While this is great news for Sarah, it obviously presents some challenges for us." Sarah stood up, her face a mix of excitement and guilt. "I want you all to know that this decision isn't easy for me. Light of Hope has become my home, and you've all become my family." As Sarah continued to speak, detailing her potential new role and what it could mean for her career, Ethan watched the room. He saw the disappointment on the students' faces, the concern from other staff members, and the carefully masked pain in Jamal's eyes. When the meeting ended, the room buzzed with whispered conversations. Ethan made his way to Jamal, who was gathering his notes with shaking hands. "Jamal," Ethan started, but Jamal cut him off. "Not now, Ethan. I need some time to process this." With that, Jamal strode out of the room, leaving Ethan standing alone. The rest of the day passed in a blur of awkward interactions and half-finished conversations. As evening fell, Ethan found himself wandering the empty halls of the school, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. He was so lost in thought that he almost collided with Sarah as she exited the digital art lab. "Ethan," she said, surprise evident in her voice. "I thought everyone had gone home." "I couldn't leave," Ethan admitted. "There's too much unresolved." Sarah nodded, understanding in her eyes. "I know. I feel like I'm being torn in two directions." The words tumbled out of Ethan before he could stop them. "Then stay. We need you here. I need you here." Sarah's eyes widened at his admission. For a moment, the air between them crackled with unspoken feelings. Then softly, she replied, "Ethan, I can't make this decision based on us, whatever us might be." Ethan felt his heart sink, even as he knew she was right. "I understand," he said, his voice rough with emotion. I I can't help but feel like we're losing something important here." "We're not losing anything," Sarah insisted, reaching out to grasp his hand. "No matter what happens, what we've built here, this school, our friendship, it's not going to disappear." Their moment was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. They turned to see Jamal rounding the corner, his face clouding over as he took in the scene before him. "Am I interrupting something?" Jamal asked, his tone sharp. Ethan and Sarah quickly stepped apart, but the damage was done. The tension that had been building for months finally boiled over. "What's really going on here?" Jamal demanded. "Is this why you're so eager to leave, Sarah? And you, Ethan, is this why you've been so distracted lately?" "Jamal, it's not like that," Sarah began. But Jamal cut her off. "Isn't it? I've seen the way you two look at each other. I'm not blind." The hurt in Jamal's voice was palpable. "I thought we were in this together, all of us. For the kids, for the community. But it seems like you both have other priorities." Ethan felt a surge of anger at Jamal's accusation. "That's not fair, Jamal. Everything I've done has been for this school, for your vision." "My vision?" Jamal laughed bitterly. "This stopped being just my vision a long time ago, Ethan. Or at least I thought it had. I thought we were partners in this." The three friends stood in tense silence. Years of friendship and shared purpose suddenly strained to the breaking point. The air was thick with unspoken words and hurt feelings. Finally, Sarah spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "We need to talk about this, all of us. Really talk. No more hiding, no more pretending everything's fine when it's not." Ethan and Jamal nodded, both recognizing the truth in her words. As they made their way to Jamal's office for what promised to be a difficult conversation, the future of their friendship, and possibly the future of Light of Hope itself, hung in the balance. The coming discussion would test the strength of their bonds and force them to confront not just Sarah's potential departure, but the complex emotions and unspoken tensions that had been simmering beneath the surface for far too long. The tension in Jamal's office was palpable as Ethan, Sarah, and Jamal sat in uncomfortable silence. The weight of unspoken words and suppressed emotions hung heavy in the air. Just as Jamal opened his mouth to speak, a sharp knock on the door startled them all. "Mr. Rivers," a young voice called out. "Are you in there? It's important." Jamal sighed, running a hand over his face. "Come in," he called out, his voice weary. The door swung open, revealing Marcus, one of their most promising students. His face was flushed with excitement, a stark contrast to the somber mood in the room. "Mr. Rivers, Miss Sarah, Mr. Ethan." Marcus nodded to each of them, slightly out of breath. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I had to tell you. I just got off the phone with the MoMA. They want to include my piece in their Young Visionaries exhibit." The news hit like a thunderbolt, instantly dispelling the tension in the room. Jamal's face broke into a wide grin, all traces of his earlier anger vanishing. "Marcus, that's incredible," he exclaimed, rising to embrace the young artist. Sarah clapped her hands together, her eyes shining with pride. "I knew that piece was special. Marcus, you've worked so hard for this." Ethan, momentarily stunned by the sudden turn of events, quickly recovered. "This is a big deal, Marcus. The MoMA? That's a game changer." Marcus nodded, his excitement palpable. "And it's all because of you guys. Light of Hope gave me the chance to discover my talent, to believe in myself. I never would have even dreamed of something like this before." As Marcus continued to share details about the upcoming exhibit, Ethan noticed a shift in the room. The earlier tension had dissipated, replaced by a shared sense of pride and accomplishment. He caught Jamal's eye, seeing his own emotions reflected there. Joy for Marcus, certainly, but also a renewed appreciation for what they had built together. After Marcus left, promising to bring in the official invitation letter the next day, the three friends found themselves looking at each other with new perspective. Jamal was the first to break the silence. I owe you both an apology," he said, his voice soft but sincere. "I let my fears and insecurities cloud my judgment. What we've built here, it's bigger than any one of us. Marcus just reminded me of that." Sarah nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm sorry too. I've been so caught up in this opportunity, I forgot to appreciate what we have right here. The impact we're making, the lives we're changing. It's incredible." Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. "We've all made mistakes," he admitted. "But look at what we've accomplished together. Marcus is just one example. There are dozens of kids out there whose lives have been transformed because of Light of Hope." The three friends sat in silence for a moment, letting the weight of their shared accomplishments sink in. The school they had built together was more than just a place to learn art. It was a beacon of hope, a catalyst for change in the community. Sarah was the first to speak again. I think I need to turn down the Los Angeles offer," she said slowly, a small smile playing on her lips. "My place is here with Light of Hope, with both of you." Jamal reached out, grasping Sarah's hand. "Are you sure? We don't want you to regret giving up this opportunity." Sarah shook her head. "I won't. What we're doing here, it's too important. Besides," she added, her gaze flickering to Ethan, "there are some things here I'm not ready to leave behind." Ethan felt a warmth spread through his chest at her words. He knew they would need to address their feelings for each other eventually, but for now, it was enough to know she was staying. Jamal looked between them, a knowing smile on his face. "Well, if we're all staying, then I think it's time we start planning for the future. Light of Hope is just getting started." As they began to discuss their plans, expanding their programs, reaching out to more schools, perhaps even opening satellite locations in other underserved neighborhoods, Ethan felt a sense of purpose and belonging, stronger than any he'd ever experienced. The challenges they had faced, both personal and professional, had only served to strengthen their bond and reaffirm their commitment to their shared vision. Together they had created something truly special, a place where art could transform lives, where hope could flourish in the most unexpected places. As the night wore on and their plans grew more ambitious, Ethan, Jamal, and Sarah knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The light of hope would continue to shine, brighter than ever, illuminating a path forward for countless young artists yet to come. On a bitterly cold winter morning in New York City, Jack sat on the edge of a bustling sidewalk in Times Square. The icy wind cut through his threadbare coat, but he barely noticed it anymore. His eyes scanned the crowd rushing by, a sea of faces lost in their own worlds. To them, he was invisible, just another fixture of the urban landscape, easily overlooked and forgotten. Jack hadn't always been homeless. He remembered a time when he too had hurried through these streets, focused on deadlines and meetings. But a series of unfortunate events, a layoff, a messy divorce, and a struggle with depression, had led him here. Now, at 52, he found himself wondering how life had taken such a sharp turn. Despite his circumstances, Jack clung to a stubborn sense of hope. He believed that kindness, no matter how small, could make a difference. This belief was what kept him going, even on the darkest days. As the morning rush reached its peak, a well-dressed man in his early 40s caught Jack's attention. The man's expensive suit and polished shoes stood in stark contrast to the despair etched on his face. Jack recognized that look. It was the same one he'd seen in the mirror countless times. The man, Ethan, was so lost in his thoughts that he didn't notice the paper cup Jack had accidentally dropped. He stumbled, nearly losing his balance. Their eyes met briefly, and in that moment, Jack saw a reflection of his own pain and loneliness. Without hesitation, Jack reached into his pocket and pulled out his last dollar. It was all he had left, meant for a cup of coffee to warm his hands. But something told him that this stranger needed it more than he did. "Hey, buddy," Jack called out, his voice rough from disuse. "Looks like you could use this more than me." Ethan stopped, confusion replacing the sadness in his eyes. He stared at the outstretched hand holding the crumpled bill, then back at Jack's weathered face. I can't take your money," Ethan stammered, clearly taken aback by the gesture. Jack smiled, the wrinkles around his eyes deepening. "Sure you can. We all need a little kindness sometimes, don't we?" Hesitantly, Ethan accepted the dollar. As their hands touched, something shifted in the air between them. It was as if, for a brief moment, the barriers of social status and circumstance crumbled away, leaving two human beings connected by a simple act of generosity. Ethan opened his mouth to speak, but words failed him. Instead, he nodded, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. As he walked away, clutching the dollar bill, Jack saw his shoulders straighten just a little. Jack leaned back against the cold concrete wall, feeling a warmth spread through his chest despite the biting cold. He might not have much, but he still had the power to make a difference, even if it was just for a moment. And sometimes, he thought, a moment was all it took to change a life. Little did Jack know that this small act of kindness would set in motion a chain of events that would not only change his life, but touch countless others. As he watched Ethan disappear into the crowd, he had no idea that their paths would soon cross again, in ways neither of them could have imagined. The next day, Ethan returned to the same spot in Times Square, his eyes scanning the bustling crowd. He was determined to find Jack, the homeless man whose unexpected kindness had shaken him to his core. After nearly an hour of searching, Ethan spotted a familiar figure huddled on a nearby bench. Jack sat wrapped in layers of tattered blankets, his weathered face partially hidden beneath a worn beanie. He looked smaller somehow, more vulnerable than Ethan remembered. As Ethan approached, Jack glanced up, recognition flickering in his eyes. "Hey there," Ethan said, his voice uncertain. "I was hoping I'd find you here. I'm Ethan. You gave me $1 yesterday, remember?" Jack nodded slowly, a hint of wariness in his expression. "Yeah, I remember. You okay?" Ethan took a deep breath. "I am, thanks to you. Listen, I was wondering if you'd like to grab a coffee with me. There's a diner just around the corner." Jack hesitated, clearly surprised by the invitation. After a moment, he nodded and slowly stood up, gathering his few possessions. At the diner, they sat in a quiet booth, steam rising from their coffee cups. The contrast between them was stark, Ethan in his tailored suit, Jack in his layers of weathered clothing. Yet, as they began to talk, those differences seemed to fade away. Ethan spoke first, his words tumbling out in a rush. He told Jack about his life, how he'd climbed the corporate ladder, accumulating wealth and status, only to find himself feeling empty and unfulfilled. The $1 Jack had given him, Ethan explained, had been a wake-up call. "I've been thinking a lot about what really matters," Ethan said, his fingers tapping nervously on the table. "And I've realized I want to do something meaningful, something that actually helps people." Jack listened intently, nodding occasionally. When Ethan finished, Jack shared his own story of lost opportunities, broken relationships, and the harsh realities of life on the streets. But he also spoke of the sense of community he'd found among other homeless individuals, and the small acts of kindness that kept hope alive. As they talked, an idea began to form in Ethan's mind. "What if," he said, leaning forward, "we created a startup focused on helping people in difficult situations? Something that combines my business experience with your first-hand knowledge of what people really need." Jack's eyebrows rose in surprise. "A startup? With me? I don't know the first thing about business." Ethan shook his head, his excitement growing. "But you know about survival, about community. You understand what it's like to struggle and what kind of help actually makes a difference. That's invaluable." Jack sat back, considering the proposal. It seemed far-fetched, almost impossible. And yet, there was something in Ethan's earnest expression that made him want to believe it could work. "I'm not sure I'm the right person for this," Jack said slowly. "But if you think I can help, I'm willing to give it a shot." Ethan's face lit up. "That's all I'm asking for. We'll figure it out together." As they left the diner, both men felt a sense of possibility they hadn't experienced in years. Jack, who had long felt invisible to the world, now saw a chance to make a real difference. Ethan, who had everything money could buy but lacked purpose, felt a renewed sense of direction. Neither of them knew exactly what lay ahead, but they were ready to face the challenges together. As they parted ways, agreeing to meet again the next day, both Jack and Ethan felt the stirrings of hope, a feeling that had been absent from their lives for far too long. The unlikely partnership between a homeless man and a disillusioned millionaire was about to begin, setting in motion a series of events that would change not only their lives, but the lives of countless others in ways they couldn't yet imagine. As Jack and Ethan began working together on their startup idea, they quickly realized the challenges that lay ahead. Their first major hurdle came in the form of a meeting with potential investors, set up through Ethan's business connections. The meeting took place in a sleek, high-rise office building that made Jack feel out of place the moment he stepped through the glass doors. Despite Ethan's efforts to make him feel comfortable, including a new set of clothes, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he didn't belong. As they entered the conference room, Jack felt the weight of skeptical gazes upon him. The investors, a group of well-groomed men and women in expensive suits, eyed him with a mixture of curiosity and doubt. Ethan began the presentation confidently, outlining their vision for a company that would provide practical, direct assistance to those in need. But when it came time for Jack to speak about his experiences and insights, he found himself stumbling over his words, intimidated by the corporate environment. The investors' questions were pointed and sometimes harsh. "How can someone with no business experience contribute to this venture?" one asked bluntly. Another questioned the viability of their ideas, suggesting that existing charities already covered their proposed services. By the end of the meeting, both Jack and Ethan felt deflated. As they left the building, Jack's shoulders slumped. "Maybe this was a mistake," he muttered. "I'm not cut out for this world." Ethan, however, refused to give up. "No, Jack. We just need to approach this differently. Your perspective is valuable. We just need to find the right way to present it." In the days that followed, Jack found himself reflecting deeply on his life experiences. He thought about the countless nights he'd spent on the streets, the people he'd met, the systems he'd navigated. Slowly, he began to see how his unique viewpoint could indeed be an asset. One evening, as they worked late in Ethan's apartment, Jack suddenly sat up straight. "You know," he said, "we've been thinking about this all wrong. We're trying to fit our ideas into their mold, but what if we created something entirely new?" Excited by Jack's enthusiasm, Ethan listened as his partner outlined a series of innovative ideas. Jack proposed a mentorship program where formerly homeless individuals could guide others through the process of rebuilding their lives. He suggested a skills exchange platform where people could offer their talents in return for assistance. Each idea was rooted in Jack's first-hand understanding of what truly helps people in difficult situations. As Jack spoke, Ethan furiously took notes, his excitement growing. He began to see how they could merge Jack's grassroots knowledge with his own business acumen to create something truly unique. Their brainstorming sessions became more frequent and productive. Jack, growing more confident in his role, became a constant source of inspiration and innovation. He challenged Ethan's assumptions and pushed him to think beyond traditional business models. Ethan, in turn, helped Jack refine his ideas and present them in ways that would appeal to investors and partners. Their different backgrounds and experiences, which had initially seemed like a barrier, were becoming their greatest strength. As weeks passed, their friendship deepened. They shared meals, swapped stories, and learned from each other's vastly different life experiences. Ethan found himself humbled by Jack's resilience and wisdom, while Jack was inspired by Ethan's determination and business savvy. Their partnership was evolving into something neither had expected, a true friendship built on mutual respect and a shared vision. As they prepared for their next investor meeting, both men felt a renewed sense of purpose and confidence. They were no longer just a homeless man and a millionaire trying to start a business. They were partners, each bringing invaluable insights to their shared dream. The road ahead was still uncertain, but together, Jack and Ethan felt ready to face whatever challenges came their way. Their unlikely alliance was not just changing their own lives, but was on the verge of creating something that could impact countless others. As Jack and Ethan's startup began to take shape, Jack found himself facing a personal challenge he had long avoided, reconnecting with his estranged daughter, Sarah. The thought of reaching out to her after years of absence filled him with a mixture of longing and dread. One evening, after a particularly productive brainstorming session with Ethan, Jack mustered the courage to broach the subject. "I have a daughter," he said quietly, his voice heavy with emotion. "I haven't seen her in years. I think it's time I tried to make things right." Ethan, sensing the importance of the moment, listened attentively as Jack shared his story. He learned about the divorce, Jack's struggles with addiction, and the gradual erosion of his relationship with Sarah. As Jack spoke, the pain of those lost years was evident in his voice. With Ethan's encouragement, Jack decided to take the first step. He managed to find Sarah's contact information through social media. His hands shook as he dialed her number, half expecting her to hang up as soon as she heard his voice. To his surprise, Sarah agreed to meet him. They arranged to meet at a small cafe, neutral ground for what promised to be an emotional encounter. On the day of the meeting, Jack arrived early, his nerves on edge. When Sarah walked in, he almost didn't recognize her. The little girl in his memories had grown into a poised young woman. As their eyes met, Jack felt a rush of emotions, pride, regret, and an overwhelming desire to make things right. The first few minutes were awkward, filled with stilted small talk and long silences. But as they began to talk more openly, the tension slowly eased. Sarah, it turned out, had been following Jack's story through local news coverage of the startup. "I saw you on TV," she said, her voice a mix of emotions. "You looked different, happier." Jack nodded, fighting back tears. "I am different. I'm trying to be anyway. Sarah, I know I can't make up for all the time I've lost, but I want you to know how sorry I am for everything." As they talked, Sarah revealed something that stunned Jack. She was working for a non-profit organization that helped homeless individuals reintegrate into society. The coincidence seemed almost too perfect to be true. "I guess in a way, I've been trying to understand you," Sarah admitted. "To understand what you went through." Jack was overwhelmed by the realization that his daughter had chosen a path so closely aligned with his own newfound purpose. It felt like a sign, a chance for redemption he never thought he'd have. As their conversation deepened, Jack shared his experiences on the streets and his new venture with Ethan. Sarah listened intently, occasionally asking questions or offering insights from her own work. "Dad," she said, using the term for the first time in years, "I can't pretend the past didn't happen, but I'm proud of what you're doing now, and I'd like to be a part of it, if you'll let me." Jack felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He hadn't dared to hope for forgiveness, let alone the chance to work alongside his daughter. "I'd like that more than anything," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. As they parted ways, promising to meet again soon, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had not only begun to mend his relationship with Sarah, but had also gained a valuable ally in their mission to help others. On his way back to meet Ethan, Jack's mind raced with new ideas inspired by his conversation with Sarah. He realized that their startup could benefit greatly from Sarah's professional experience and fresh perspective. The reunion with Sarah had done more than heal old wounds. It had opened up new possibilities for their project and for Jack's future. As he walked, Jack felt a profound sense of gratitude. The path to redemption was long, but for the first time in years, he felt truly hopeful about the journey ahead. As Jack and Ethan's startup began to gain traction, they faced increasing pressure from investors to show concrete results. The initial excitement surrounding their innovative ideas had begun to wane, replaced by a demand for tangible outcomes and measurable impact. During a particularly tense meeting with their primary investors, Ethan found himself on the defensive. "We understand your concerns," he said, trying to maintain his composure. "But what we're trying to do here isn't just about numbers. It's about changing lives." The lead investor, a stern-faced woman named Barbara, leaned forward. "That's admirable, Ethan, but sentiment doesn't pay the bills. We need to see real progress, and soon." As they left the meeting, Ethan's frustration was palpable. Jack, who had been quiet throughout the exchange, suddenly spoke up. "I think I have an idea," he said, his eyes bright with excitement. Over the next few days, Jack spent hours observing the local community, talking to people on the streets, and reflecting on his own experiences. He noticed how disconnected many of the support services were, and how difficult it was for people to navigate the system. One evening, as they worked late in their small office, Jack presented his idea to Ethan. "What if we organize a community event?" he suggested. "Not just another fundraiser, but something that brings together all the local services, volunteers, and people who need help. We could create a sort of one-stop shop for support." Ethan listened intently, his initial skepticism giving way to interest. "Go on," he urged. Jack outlined his vision, a day-long event in a local park, with booths for various services, workshops on job skills and financial literacy, free health screenings, and a communal meal. "It's not just about providing services," Jack explained. "It's about building connections, showing people they're not alone." Ethan saw the potential immediately. Such an event could not only help people directly, but also showcase their startup's innovative approach to investors and the media. However, he also saw the challenges. "This is a big undertaking, Jack. Are you sure we can pull it off?" Jack's determination was unwavering. "I know we can. I've lived this, Ethan. I know what people need, and I know there are plenty of folks out there who want to help. We just need to bring them together." Convinced by Jack's passion, Ethan agreed to move forward with the plan. They dove into the logistics, reaching out to local businesses, nonprofits, and government agencies. Jack's connections from his time on the streets proved invaluable, opening doors that might have otherwise remained closed. As word of the event spread, they encountered both enthusiasm and skepticism. Some local officials were hesitant, concerned about drawing too much attention to the area's homelessness problem. Others, particularly grassroots organizations, were eager to participate. The weeks leading up to the event were a whirlwind of activity. Jack and Ethan worked tirelessly, often late into the night, coordinating volunteers, securing permits, and arranging donations. Their different skills complemented each other perfectly. Ethan handling the business side, while Jack focused on community outreach. As the day of the event approached, tensions ran high. There were last-minute cancellations to deal with, unexpected regulations to navigate, and a constant fear that turnout might be low. The night before, as they finished setting up in the park, Ethan voiced his concerns. "What if this doesn't work, Jack? What if no one shows up?" Jack placed a reassuring hand on Ethan's shoulder. "They'll come," he said with quiet confidence, "because for the first time, we're offering what they really need. Not just services, but a community." As they looked out over the empty park, soon to be filled with booths, stages, and hopefully people, both men felt a mix of anxiety and excitement. This event was more than just a test of their business model. It was a chance to make a real difference in people's lives. With everything in place, all they could do now was wait for morning to come and hope that their vision would become a reality. The success or failure of this event could determine the future of their startup and, more importantly, impact the lives of countless individuals in need. The day of the event dawned bright and clear, a stroke of luck that Jack and Ethan took as a good omen. They arrived at the park early, hearts racing with anticipation and nerves. As volunteers began to trickle in, setting up booths and hanging banners, the empty space slowly transformed into a bustling hub of activity. At first, attendance was slow. Jack and Ethan exchanged worried glances as they saw only a handful of people wandering between the booths. But as the morning progressed, word spread and more people began to arrive. By midday, the park was filled with a diverse crowd: homeless individuals, families struggling to make ends meet, social workers, volunteers, and curious community members. The atmosphere was unlike anything either Jack or Ethan had experienced before. There was an energy in the air, a sense of community and shared purpose that was almost palpable. At one booth, a formerly homeless woman was teaching a group how to navigate the complex world of social services. At another, local chefs were giving cooking demonstrations using affordable, nutritious ingredients. As the event hit its stride, Jack found himself approached by a local news crew. Initially hesitant, he agreed to an interview at Ethan's encouragement. Standing in front of the camera, Jack spoke from the heart about his experiences on the street and the importance of community support. "It's not just about giving people a handout," Jack said, his voice steady and passionate. "It's about giving them the tools and the support to rebuild their lives. Everyone here has something to offer, something to teach. We're all in this together." His words resonated with viewers, and soon social media was buzzing with clips from his interview. People were sharing the event location, encouraging others to come down and participate. As the day wore on, Jack and Ethan were approached by countless individuals, each with a story to share or a word of thanks. A young mother tearfully explained how the free health screening had caught her son's undiagnosed condition. A middle-aged man proudly showed off the resume he'd created at one of the workshops, hope shining in his eyes for the first time in years. The event culminated in a community dinner with long tables set up in the center of the park. As the sun began to set, hundreds of people from all walks of life sat down together, sharing a meal and conversation. The barriers that usually divided them, social status, economic situation, background, seemed to dissolve in the warm glow of shared humanity. As Jack and Ethan stood to the side, watching the scene before them, they were approached by a well-dressed woman they didn't recognize. She introduced herself as Rebecca Chen, a representative from a major philanthropic foundation. "I've been watching your work with great interest," Rebecca said, her eyes bright with excitement. "What you've accomplished here today is remarkable. We'd like to discuss the possibility of a significant investment in your startup." Jack and Ethan exchanged stunned looks. This was beyond anything they had hoped for. As they began to discuss details with Rebecca, they realized that their dream of making a large-scale impact was suddenly within reach. As the event wound down and the last of the attendees departed, Jack and Ethan found themselves sitting on a park bench, exhausted but exhilarated. The park around them, now quiet and strewn with the remnants of the day's activities, bore witness to the transformative power of their idea. "We did it, Jack," Ethan said softly, still somewhat in disbelief. Jack nodded. a smile playing on his lips. "We did. But this is just the beginning." As they sat there, plans already forming for their next steps, both men knew that their lives had irrevocably changed. What had started as a chance encounter and a single act of kindness had grown into something neither of them could have imagined. They had not only created a successful event, but had laid the foundation for a movement that had the potential to change countless lives. The road ahead would undoubtedly be challenging, but with their newfound support and the momentum from the day's success, Jack and Ethan felt ready to face whatever came their way. They had proven that their unlikely partnership could create real, meaningful change, and they were more determined than ever to continue their work. In the weeks following the successful community event, Jack and Ethan's startup experienced a whirlwind of activity. The injection of capital from Rebecca Chen's foundation allowed them to expand their operations rapidly. They moved into a proper office space, hired a small team, and began implementing programs based on the successful elements of their community event. Jack, once invisible on the streets, now found himself thrust into the public eye. He became the face of their organization, appearing in interviews, speaking at conferences, and meeting with community leaders. His authenticity and first-hand experience resonated with people, lending credibility to their mission. One morning, as Jack prepared for a television interview, he caught his reflection in the mirror. The man staring back at him was almost unrecognizable from the person he'd been just months ago. Clean-shaven, well-dressed, with a spark of purpose in his eyes, Jack looked every bit the successful entrepreneur. Yet, as he straightened his tie, a wave of unease washed over him. Later that day, Jack confided in Ethan about his feelings. They were working late in their new office, the city lights twinkling outside their window. "Ethan," Jack began hesitantly, "I'm worried. Everything's moving so fast, and sometimes I feel like I'm losing touch with who I am, with where I came from." Ethan put down the report he was reading, giving Jack his full attention. "What do you mean?" Jack sighed, struggling to articulate his thoughts. "It's just, I'm living this new life now. Nice clothes, fancy meetings, my face on TV. But the people we're trying to help, they're still out there, struggling. I'm afraid of becoming so caught up in this world that I forget what it's really like on the streets." Ethan nodded slowly, understanding dawning on his face. "You're afraid of losing your perspective, the very thing that makes our work unique." "Exactly," Jack said, relieved that Ethan understood. "And it's not just that. I worry about letting the success go to my head. What if I become one of those people who thinks they have all the answers, who forgets what it's like to have nothing?" Ethan was quiet for a moment, considering Jack's words. Then he stood up and walked to the window, gesturing for Jack to join him. They looked out over the city, the streets below, still busy with life even at this late hour. "Jack," Ethan said softly, "the fact that you're worried about this shows that you haven't lost touch. You're still the same person who gave his last dollar to a stranger. That compassion, that understanding, it's who you are, not just where you've been." Jack nodded, but still looked uncertain. Ethan continued, "But I understand your concern. It's easy to get caught up in success, to start believing your own hype. So let's make a pact, right here and now. We'll keep each other grounded. We'll never forget why we started this, and we'll always make time to connect with the people we're trying to help." Relieved by Ethan's understanding and support, Jack felt some of his anxiety ease. They spent the next hour brainstorming ways to stay connected to their mission: regular volunteer days, mentorship programs, and an open-door policy for anyone seeking help. As they wrapped up their conversation, Jack felt a renewed sense of purpose. He realized that his journey from the streets to success wasn't just about personal redemption. It was a bridge between two worlds, a way to bring understanding and real change to a complex problem. The next day, Energized by their late-night discussion, Jack suggested a new initiative to the team. He proposed a series of informal street talks, where he would regularly spend time in areas he once frequented, talking with people still living on the streets, understanding their current challenges, and bringing those insights back to inform their work. As Jack and Ethan continued to navigate the challenges of their growing organization, they remained committed to their core mission and to each other. Their partnership, built on mutual respect and a shared vision, continued to be the driving force behind their success. The road ahead was still uncertain, filled with both opportunities and potential pitfalls. But together, they felt equipped to face whatever challenges came their way, always remembering the simple act of kindness that had started it all. As their startup continued to grow and gain recognition, Jack felt an increasing urge to use his newfound platform to directly impact the lives of those still struggling on the streets. After much contemplation and discussion with Ethan, Jack decided to launch a mentorship program specifically targeted at helping homeless individuals rebuild their lives. The program, which they named Street to Success, was designed to pair homeless individuals with mentors who had experienced homelessness themselves and had successfully transitioned back into stable housing and employment. Jack, of course, would be one of the first mentors. When Jack presented the idea to their board of directors, he spoke passionately about the importance of peer support and lived experience. Who better to guide someone through this journey than someone who's walked that path themselves, he argued. The board, impressed by Jack's conviction and the potential impact of the program, gave their full support. Launching the mentorship program proved to be both challenging and rewarding. Jack spent countless hours on the streets, talking to people, building trust, and identifying potential participants. He remembered all too well the skepticism and mistrust that came with years of broken promises and disappointment. One of Jack's first mentees was a young man named Mike, who reminded Jack of himself at a younger age. Mike had been living on the streets for 2 years after losing his job and battling addiction. At first, Mike was resistant to Jack's offers of help, but Jack's persistence and understanding eventually won him over. Over the course of several months, Jack worked closely with Mike, helping him navigate the complex systems of social services, supporting him through rehab, and eventually assisting him in securing a job and temporary housing. The transformation in Mike was remarkable, and his success story became a powerful testament to the effectiveness of their program. As word of the mentorship program spread, more and more people reached out for help. Jack found himself juggling his responsibilities as a mentor with his role as a public figure and co-founder of the organization. The work was exhausting, but deeply fulfilling. Ethan, inspired by Jack's dedication, decided to get more directly involved as well. He began offering business skills workshops to program participants, teaching them about financial literacy, resume writing, and interview skills. The synergy between Jack's street-level approach and Ethan's business acumen created a comprehensive support system that addressed both immediate needs and long-term sustainability. The success of Street to Success didn't go unnoticed. Other cities began reaching out, interested in implementing similar programs. Jack and Ethan found themselves traveling, sharing their model, and helping other communities set up their own mentorship initiatives. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of meetings and mentoring sessions, Jack and Ethan sat in their office, reflecting on how far they'd come. "You know," Jack said, a hint of wonder in his voice, "when I gave you that $1, I never imagined it would lead to all this." Ethan smiled, nodding in agreement. "It's amazing how one small act can set off such a chain reaction. But you know what's even more incredible? The ripple effect of what we're doing now. Each person we help has the potential to go on and help others." As they continued to talk, they realized that their partnership had become more than just a business relationship. They had become true friends, each bringing out the best in the other. Ethan's drive and business acumen complemented Jack's compassion and street smarts perfectly. Their conversation was interrupted by a call from Rebecca Chen, the foundation representative who had initially invested in their startup. She had exciting news. A major national news program wanted to feature their organization and the Street to Success program in a primetime special. As Jack hung up the phone, he turned to Ethan with a mix of excitement and trepidation. "This could be huge for us," he said. "A chance to reach even more people, to show the country that change is possible." Ethan nodded, understanding both the opportunity and the pressure this would bring. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together," he said, extending his hand to Jack. As they shook hands, both men felt a sense of anticipation. They had come so far, yet they knew this was just the beginning. Their journey from an unexpected act of kindness to a nationwide movement was proof that compassion, combined with action, could truly change the world. Months passed, and the day of the much-anticipated fundraising gala finally arrived. It was a pivotal moment for Jack and Ethan's organization, with influential donors, media personalities, and community leaders all in attendance. The event was being held in an opulent hotel ballroom, a setting that still made Jack feel slightly out of place, despite his recent experiences in the spotlight. As Jack adjusted his tie in front of a mirror in the hotel's restroom, he caught sight of his reflection. The face looking back at him was a far cry from the man who had once slept on park benches. Yet, as he straightened his posture and took a deep breath, he felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Tonight, he would be giving the keynote speech, sharing his story and the mission of their organization with hundreds of potential supporters. Ethan found Jack just before the speech was due to start. "You ready for this?" he asked, giving Jack's shoulder a supportive squeeze. Jack nodded, a mix of nervousness and determination in his eyes. "As ready as I'll ever be. Let's do this." As Jack took the stage, the room fell silent. The bright lights momentarily blinded him, but as his eyes adjusted, he saw the sea of faces before him, all waiting to hear what he had to say. "Good evening," Jack began, his voice steady despite his nerves. "My name is Jack, and just over a year ago, I was homeless on the streets of this very city." He paused, letting the weight of those words sink in. Then, he launched into his story. The circumstances that led to his homelessness, the daily struggles he faced, and the unexpected encounter with Ethan that changed everything. As Jack spoke, he could feel the energy in the room shift. People who had been casually chatting or checking their phones were now fully engaged, hanging on his every word. He spoke of the successes they'd had, the lives they'd changed through their programs. But he also spoke of the challenges that remained, the thousands of people still struggling on the streets. Towards the end of his speech, Jack's voice grew softer, more reflective. "But there's something I need to confess," he said, his words causing a ripple of curiosity through the audience. "As we've grown, as we've achieved success, I've sometimes felt myself becoming distant from where I started. I've worried about losing touch with the very people we're trying to help." He paused, his eyes scanning the room. "And that's why I want to tell you about my friend Tom. Tom and I used to share a spot under the 4th Street Bridge. He was always looking out for others, even when he had nothing himself. Last week, I went back to visit that spot, hoping to find Tom and tell him about our organization, to offer him help. But Tom wasn't there. I learned from others that he had passed away during the winter, alone and forgotten." A hushed silence fell over the room. Jack continued, his voice thick with emotion. "Tom's story reminds all of us, why we're here tonight. It's not about galas or donations or recognition. It's about people like Tom, who deserve a chance at a better life. It's about creating a world where no one has to die alone on the streets." As Jack concluded his speech, the room erupted in applause. Many in the audience were visibly moved, some wiping away tears. Jack stepped down from the podium, feeling both drained and invigorated. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of handshakes, congratulations, and pledges of support. As the last guests were leaving, Ethan found Jack sitting alone in a quiet corner of the ballroom. "That was incredible, Jack," Ethan said, sitting down beside him. "You really moved people tonight." Jack nodded, a small smile on his face. "I just spoke the truth. And you know what? Talking about Tom, remembering where I came from, it grounded me, reminded me why we're doing all this." As they sat there, both lost in thought, they were approached by a distinguished-looking man. He introduced himself as William Hartley, a prominent philanthropist. "Gentlemen," Hartley said, his voice filled with admiration, "what you've accomplished is truly remarkable. I believe your organization has the potential to create lasting change on a national scale. I'd like to discuss the possibility of a major expansion with significant backing from my foundation." Jack and Ethan exchanged surprised looks. This could be the opportunity they'd been working towards, a chance to extend their reach and help even more people. As they began to discuss the details with Hartley, both Jack and Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had come so far, yet they knew that their journey was far from over. With this new opportunity on the horizon, they were ready to take their mission to the next level, always remembering the people like Tom who inspired their work. The gala marked not just a successful fundraising event, but a turning point in their organization's history. As they looked to the future, Jack and Ethan were more committed than ever to their shared vision of a world where everyone had the opportunity to thrive. As Jack and Ethan left the gala, still buzzing from the success of the evening and the potential of William Hartley's offer, Ethan suddenly grew quiet. They were walking through the quiet streets, the city's nighttime skyline glittering around them. "Jack," Ethan said, his voice uncharacteristically hesitant, "there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you a long time ago." Jack stopped walking, sensing the seriousness in Ethan's tone. "What is it?" Ethan took a deep breath. "Remember when we first met, how I told you I was just another businessman who'd lost his way?" Jack nodded, and Ethan continued. "Well, that wasn't the whole truth. I'm actually the adopted son of Robert Kensington." Jack's eyes widened in surprise. Robert Kensington was a well-known business magnate who had lost everything in the financial crisis a few years back. The story had been all over the news. "When my adoptive father's empire crumbled, I couldn't handle it," Ethan explained. "I felt lost, purposeless. That's why I was wandering the streets that day when you gave me that $1. I've been too ashamed to tell you the truth, afraid it might change how you saw me or our mission." Jack was quiet for a moment, processing this revelation. Then, to Ethan's surprise, he started to laugh. "You know what's funny?" Jack said. "Years ago, when I first became homeless, your father's foundation helped my ex-wife and daughter. They provided temporary housing and job placement services. Without that help, who knows where they might have ended up?" Ethan stared at Jack in disbelief. "Are you serious?" Jack nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "Life has a funny way of coming full circle, doesn't it? Your father's kindness helped my family when I couldn't. And now here we are, working together to help others." The two men stood there for a moment, marveling at the complex web of connections that had brought them to this point. Then Jack's expression grew serious. "Ethan, this doesn't change anything between us. We've built this together, from the ground up. Your background, your father, none of that matters. What matters is what we do now, how we use our experiences to help others." Ethan felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He had been carrying this secret for so long, afraid it might jeopardize everything they had built. But Jack's acceptance and the revelation of their intertwined past only strengthened their bond. As they resumed walking, a new idea began to form in Jack's mind. "You know," he said slowly, "your family's experience, losing everything, having to rebuild, That's a valuable perspective too. There are a lot of people out there who've fallen from comfortable lives into hardship. Your story could help them. Ethan nodded, considering the possibility. You're right, and maybe we could use some of my family's old business connections to expand our reach even further. Their conversation continued long into the night as they explored new possibilities for their organization. They discussed how they could combine Jack's grassroots approach with Ethan's business world connections, creating a comprehensive support system that could help people at all levels of society who had fallen on hard times. As the first light of dawn began to break over the city, Jack and Ethan found themselves back at their office building. They were exhausted but exhilarated, their minds racing with new ideas and plans. You know, Jack said as they stood looking up at the building that housed their growing organization, when I gave you that $1, I thought I was just helping one person get through one day. I never imagined it would lead to all this. Ethan smiled, putting a hand on Jack's shoulder. That's the power of kindness, I guess. You never know how far it might reach. As they headed inside to start another day's work, both men felt a renewed sense of purpose. Their partnership, built on an unexpected act of kindness and strengthened by shared experiences and mutual respect, had already changed countless lives. And with the new opportunities on the horizon, they were poised to make an even bigger impact. The story of the homeless man and the millionaire's son, once strangers and now the closest of friends and partners, was more than just a tale of personal redemption. It was a testament to the power of compassion, the strength found in unlikely alliances, and the profound change that can occur when people from different walks of life come together for a common cause. As they stepped into their office, ready to face whatever challenges the new day might bring, Jack and Ethan knew that this was just the beginning of their journey. The road ahead would undoubtedly have its ups and downs, but together, they were ready to face anything, always remembering the simple act of kindness that had started it all.